Okay, so I just chose the exact wrong time to go live. It started snowing, I think. So that's what my children are freaking out. They're screaming and they're like, hey, it's snowing. So there's going to be that in the background, but hey, we're going to keep this pretty short and quick today. I'm just talking about coffee and health, because that's like a thing that is one of the biggest reasons why I think that people should be drinking specialty coffee and getting into specialty coffee. The rest of it, the pretentious, is that screaming? Do I hear screaming? I think you hear screaming too. The pretentiousness around, excuse me, the pretentiousness surrounding the actual drinking of specialty coffee, or like digging into the flavors, like I enjoy that. That's fun, and I totally understand if you don't, or like if other people don't, if they don't want to push that on them. The only thing though, the reason I get behind proselytizing specialty coffee is because of the health benefits, and that's a huge aspect of it. Now, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a diet specialist. I can't really talk about these things with any amount of authority, but I can talk about my experience and kind of my general impression and understanding of coffee and how the general consensus views coffee and whether or not it's healthy. So I look at coffee as two main types, right? Like I always go back to the point that coffee is the second most traded commodity in the world, which is still a mind-blowing fact to me. It still is shocking that it's like oil, coffee, bam. But it also kind of makes sense. Like people drink a shit ton of coffee. So I break coffee into two types. There's commodity grade and there's specialty grade coffee. And really the biggest difference, it's not about anything other than how it is treated and what its purpose is. So commodity grade coffee is grown in mass and in bulk and just trying to pump out as much volume as possible, right? And then, of course, specialty grade coffee is like, hey, like that volume is cool and all, but we're going to try to make this good and do everything that we can to make it better. And in that process, a lot of that makes it healthier. And in the same thing for commodity grade coffee. Like if the goal is to create as much as possible, the interests of the consumer are not first and foremost. Whereas if the goal for specialty grade coffee is to make it taste as awesome as possible, oftentimes that aligns with like the consumer's health. Goals centered around consumer health. And so to me, specialty grade coffee tends to be, it has all, like if you read research papers, if you read anything online, if you go and search on Google right now, you'll get a whole bunch of differing opinions, like coffee is great for you, coffee is terrible for you, what's going on? And in my experience, a lot of the negative drawbacks of coffee are mostly focused on commodity grade coffee. Like when I drink commodity grade coffee, I feel what those articles are talking. Like I know, I'm like, wait a second, I'm getting jittery, I'm losing my mind, I can't go to sleep on time, all kinds of things like that. And then like, obviously because they're almost always super burnt, like that process of burning coffee in and of itself is a carcinogenic. Specialty grade coffee, on the other hand, when I drink it, I'm like, this feels great. Like I can feel a difference in my own process. So talking about my personal experience, of course, I, like everybody, started with commodity grade coffee. Like I would purposefully seek out the cheapest, darkest, most plentiful coffee that I could find. I had my little portable blade grinder that I took with me everywhere, and a ginormous French press, and that was my routine every single morning. I would like grind it up, get it going, dump a whole bunch in, and inevitably I would drink way too much and get super jittery, like hands shaking, unable to control it. Like, but for whatever reason, I was like, I liked that. Maybe I was addicted to that. Who knows? And I can still hear myself, and it was bothering me. So hold on, let me turn that off. Okay, hopefully that's a little bit better. Right. Okay. So my experience with that, like you have that sludgy feeling, and especially over the course of years of slowly increasing the amount of coffee that you drink. If you're drinking poor quality coffee over time, like that build up and that habit and that ritual and that addiction start to get to you. And so there was definitely a period of time before I got into specialty coffee where like I could tell I was on the decline health wise, just overall health wise, because I was getting less sleep at night. I was getting more anxious and just generally feeling super sludgy. And I now look back on it, and I mean there were a ton of reasons, but one of the bigger reasons was this slowly gradual increase in low quality coffee intake. Luckily, I switched over to specialty coffee against my will. At that point in time, I was not into it. I was like, this is my habit. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to stick with it. And I'm very glad that I made the shift over. Granted, my wife pulled me along, kicking and screaming. And so once I switched over to specialty coffee, one of the first things that I noticed is that the taste of specialty coffee was way lighter than I was used to. It like tasted watery, it tasted kind of tea-like, and my body at first was not. It was like, this is not coffee. This is not what you need to give me for my addiction. And it took about 2 weeks of consistently drinking specialty coffee before my body was like, wait a second, there's more caffeine in this new stuff that you're drinking. I just wasn't, like, I didn't have the same physical response because it tasted different. But now I'm into it. And so once my body, I guess, recognized that, hey, there is caffeine here, it's coming, don't worry about it, like, don't freak out, you're going to be fine. That specialty coffee started taking care of that physical addiction. Like, I think that's what it is. It's a physical addiction. Like, there's no getting around that. And that's probably one of the worst things about caffeine in general, and it just so happens that coffee has caffeine as that addictive quality to it. And so switching over to that specialty coffee, I quickly found that like, it was sustaining the physical need that my body had, but also it felt like a much cleaner caffeine high, right? So like, you get jittery. You get jittery on commodity grade coffee, but you don't on specialty grade coffee. And you ride that out for, like, there's not as much of a crash. Like, there's a little dip in the afternoon, I would say. And I don't really know how to experience or how to explain it much better than that. But that is in essence what made me switch over. I was like, I feel better. I feel good again. And if this like increase in quality for my coffee has anything to do with it, I'm going to stick with that, and I'm going to make that happen. So that's what I did. Obviously the best parts of that came later, where I was like, okay, there's a whole lot to this whole specialty coffee thing. Like, I have to learn a ton, and I have to explore a bunch of different coffees. And that's where I get most enjoyment from these days. But when specifically talking about the health benefits, that is something that I have experienced and I have noticed. And in fact, I'm going to pull up one of the things I was reading the other day. Okay, so this is something that kind of shocked me, but I recently read that the WHO, the World Health Organization, up until 2016, coffee was on their list of cancer risk carcinogenic foods, and they recommended that you didn't drink it. And then 2016, it got taken off the list, and there's like nothing else that's been taken off the list. I don't know of any other thing that has been taken off of that list. There's enough research out there saying that cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, colon, uterine, and liver cancer, and cirrhosis, all of those things are helped by coffee. So, I mean, part of me is just like, you know what, I do have this addiction, I've got it, but I'm going to stick with it because it's going to help me fight dementia in my older age. Like, I'm into that. And cardiovascular disease, yeah, I'm okay with type 2 diabetes. I'm okay with like limiting and fighting some of that stuff, and liver cancer. So this is the other aspect about coffee. One of the research papers that I dug into, one of the more interesting correlations that they observed was how drinking an obscene amount of coffee and smoking nicotine cigarettes or vaping or whatever, and drinking alcohol, like looking at those three habits. This was a study that they performed over 28 years with a whole bunch of different food groups and consumptive items. I don't know what word I should be using there. But so specifically looking at these nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, like those three things. Specifically looking at coffee and how it relates to alcohol and tobacco use. It was interesting to see that people who were consuming more than like 5 cups of coffee a day there was a higher correlation amongst that population that also smoked cigarettes and drank a lot of alcohol, like on a very detrimental scale. And the opposite was true. Like if you drank fewer than 2 cups of coffee a day, then that population was much less likely to have ever smoked a cigarette or ever had any alcohol. And definitely for me, like there have been periods of my life, if you didn't know, I lived in China and that's my excuse. But there have been periods of my life where there's lots of cigarettes and lots of alcohol. And I look back on it now and I'm looking at during those times, that was also kind of the peak of my coffee consumption. These days I drink maybe 2 cups of coffee, to maybe 3 cups of coffee a day. But there was a point in time where I would slam 8 double shots of espresso, just like over the course of a morning, and then I would switch to alcohol, and that was my day at the old cafe that we had. And it makes sense if you knew the culture of that cafe, but I do not miss that part of my life, like the health benefits of eliminating alcohol and tobacco. Totally worth it. If you haven't done it, do it. So let's see, what else do I have to talk about? Do I have any? So yeah, I guess that's all we have. I do have an embarrassing admission to make. This past week or so, I thought that I had everything kind of lined up and ready to go and ready to be automated and posted. And I was like, you know what? I got everything lined up. I'm going to kind of take a week off. I'm going to stay away from social media. I'm going to detox my brain. And of course, something went wrong and none of the posts that I had scheduled went out. So that's fine. That's not a huge deal. That's not like whatever, right? The more embarrassing thing is that part of that was that I had scheduled a Brew Along with the owner of Cuvée Coffee. But I screwed up and I scheduled it on Saturday instead. So I really hope, I sent him an email this morning and he hasn't responded to me yet. I really hope that Mike did not jump on the link for this call yesterday, see me not there, and then be like, oh no. Because I really want to hear I really want to share with you his story about this particular coffee as well as Cuvée in general. They are one of the bigger local Austin roasters. So hopefully my screw up didn't ruin that, and Mike will join us next week or the week after that. Real quick though, before we go, I'm gonna make some coffee. I'll make some espresso. This will be my second drink of the day. And I think, let's see, so I definitely need to get some posts introducing the El Salvador, but if you got it in the mail, if you're a subscriber, I would love to hear what you have to say about this. This is it's by no means a dark roast, but it's on the darker side of what we've been picking recently. So it's I would say it's closer to the medium of medium. And yeah, we're just going to do straight espresso today. I think that sounds good. So I do feel like, I don't know if it is a single origin coffee roasted by Cuvée, and I don't know if it was designed for espresso, but it definitely feels like a single origin espresso to me. It is delicious as an espresso. Like that gingery spiciness really comes through, along with that, the typical chocolatey, citrusy stuff that you normally get from El Salvador's. And it's phenomenal all around. It's a very enjoyable experience. I've been enjoying it so much that I've only done a pour over twice in the past week and a half. It's been mostly just straight espresso, occasionally a milk drink. It mixes with milk really well as well. But so far, I've been really impressed with this coffee. And I'm sure you will be too, as long as I can find a cup. Looks like we're going back to good old cupping cups. Oh, I've got to show you the graphs, don't I? Let's get that up. Let's get the other camera angle in. Beautiful. Now we're just waiting for it to heat up. So, questions. Do you have any questions about coffee, health benefits, health detractors? I can answer from my own experience, from experience of others that I've talked to. One thing that I notice a lot of is, so you have people with stomach issues. This is a big one. So a lot of people are like, hey, I don't drink coffee anymore because it upsets my stomach. And every single time somebody says that to me and I have the capability, I'm like, let me make you some coffee right now. Just try a tiny sip, see if it upsets your stomach. And if not, then we've learned something. If it has, then okay, fine. And usually what happens is that people will try a high quality specialty single origin coffee, all the buzzwords, all the nice stuff, but just like a quality coffee where it is grown, roasted, and brewed appropriately, such that none of the negative things that normally appear in commodity grade coffee that upset people's stomach appear in that coffee. So they drink it and they're like, wait a second, what is going on? Why are there different types of coffees? Why is it that some coffee is gonna screw up my stomach and some coffee is gonna make me feel amazing? And how do I get more of this and less of this? How do I avoid this while finding this? And that's one of the most difficult things to do. It's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of signaling going on that's constantly changing in the industry itself. And I think it says wait, but it's ready to go. So let's just do it. Oh, and I meant to switch to default, but we're doing a blooming espresso, which is perfectly fine. So I've said it again. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It is 98.4% of the world's coffee is commodity grade coffee. And what commodity grade coffee really means is that it's bug infested, it's moldy, it's over roasted, under roasted, overripe, underripe, and a whole bunch of other defects like different sizes, deformed. And what that means is that once it's roasted, all of those defects are exacerbated. They're exaggerated. They're made to become more prominent in the cup. So when you as a consumer drink that, you feel it a lot more. So if there's bug infested nonsense in there, you're getting bug stuff in there. If it's moldy, you're drinking mold. And most commodity grade coffee is designed to stay on the shelf for 12 plus months. And that's where it starts to get mold. Or that's where the mold grows to become even worse. Perfect. I've got these settings dialed in and I'm very happy with where they're at. So that was 21 grams in, 43.5 grams out. And just take a look at that. Just take a look at that gorgeous, do you see that crema? It's like really thick crema. Which is not something that I'm used to lately, but because I've been focusing on these super light roasts, but I really enjoy this. Sorry, I was getting on a soapbox, and my soapbox is very incoherent today. So hopefully when I publish the article about this, it will be significantly more coherent as I put all these thoughts together. But again, one of the biggest things is that commodity grade coffee, for people who have upset stomachs when it comes to coffee, they, rather than write off coffee as something that you're never going to drink again, especially if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it and you just have that caffeine addiction, by all means, switch over to like Coke or Pepsi or Diet Dr. Pepper or whatever. But if you enjoy coffee and you miss it, and you're not drinking anymore because of what it does to your stomach or because of how your health is affected, try switching to specialty coffee and see how that affects you. 80% of the time, anecdotally, in my experience, whenever somebody comes to me and says that, and I have them try some specialty coffee, even over the course of a couple of days, 80% of the time, they're like, nope, this does not affect me. This is amazing. I want more of this. Where can I get it? How do I find it? And how do I avoid commodity grade coffee? So I think that's all I have to say. I'm going to get off my soapbox. I'm going to be done with this nonsense. I'm going to continue to enjoy my coffee. You, my dear friend, I hope you stay caffeinated. And I'll see you next time.